What's up, guys? The Beast and J here with another reaction / review. Tonight it is for Spider-Man Homecoming. First of all, if you've never seen one of these before, as you may or may not know, this starts off spoiler-free for a few minutes. I will let you know when I'm about to go into spoilers, and then the gloves will come off and we'll talk about everything. But before that, I'll give you a nice little review in case you haven't seen the movie yet. So you will be warned, don't worry. Now, by the smile on my face coming in here, you must know I am very, very happy. I am a happy man. Where do I even begin? This was perfect. This movie was perfect, in my opinion. No other Spider-Man movies matter before this. This is the definitive Spider-Man movie, and they just nailed everything about Peter, about Spider-Man, about the villains, about, you know, the tone of the world and the tone of Spider-Man and how he begins, and even his interaction with Tony. Everything was just perfect. It was so well done. Tom Holland knocked it out of the park. Civil War was just such a brief teaser of what this kid was bringing to the character, and man, not to call him a kid, I don't want to demean him in any way, especially not after what I just saw, but he just is so amazing. No pun intended. He was everything. Tom Holland is Spider-Man. He is Spider-Man. There is no doubt about it. So where do we go? First of all, as a story as a whole, without any spoilers, it was just so well done, I thought. The progression from where it begins to where it ends is just perfect. It makes so much sense, and it was really well told. The character progression in the film, as well as the development of the supporting cast, characters like the ones Zendaya plays, you know, just where these characters start to where they go to the end of the film is really well done. It's so hard to talk about things without spoiling them, but I'm really going to try to give you a nice little sum up here. The relationship between Peter and Happy, with him kind of being like the chaperone for Tony, kind of keeping his eye on him and making sure he's in check. And, you know, you really get the sense of the relationship between the three of them, really. I mean, they really like this kid. They think he's a good kid, and they want to help him grow and evolve and become something better. And, you know, in terms of the stuff with Iron Man and in this movie, the relationship between the two of them is so important because for both of them, because Tony becomes, he's much more personable than we've ever seen him before. He's really coming into a father figure role for Peter. I think he just sees so much of himself in Peter, and that really, you know, makes him care even more. Like, I don't want him to make the same mistakes that I made. I want him to really be a hero for people and just really be the best version of himself that he can possibly be in his own Tony Stark way. I thought that just the relationships that Peter has with everyone are great. The Aunt May, the newer take on Aunt May, Marissa Tomei did a great job with Aunt May. I love their back and forth. I love their more casual relationship because she is his aunt by marriage, and you know, it's realistic. It's very realistic. Like, they're super close. She takes no shit from him, and he is just constantly kind of giving her a hard time, and she calls him on it every step of the way. Their relationship is great. I thought Ned was really awesome. Used the perfect amount in the perfect way. Honestly, I could have even done with even more of him. Jacob, I think his name here is Jacob Batalon. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but he played Ned, who I think is Ned Leeds. They don't say his last name. I'm pretty sure, but I'm pretty sure it's Ned Leeds, who in the comic books, spoilers for the comic books, becomes the Hobgoblin. I can't possibly see that happening with this character, but he did such a great job. They used him in such a great way. And he was just the perfect, kind of sidekick to Peter, and just was so, it was so exactly the way you would react if you found your best friend was Spider-Man. He just wanted to be involved in any and every way he could. And I just really loved the two of their relationship. Just the on-screen chemistry between those two particularly was really awesome. The chemistry was all over the place. It was great. It was just an outstanding cast, and I think the writing was so strong. And, you know, just to keep going with the supporting cast, the Flash Thompson played by Tony Revolori. Really cool. I absolutely love that they cast, I believe he's an Indian man. They just don't, there's no explanation needed. He shows up and he's Flash Thompson. He's not a white guy anymore, and that's fucking that. You just move on. And they don't, it's not brought up. It's not a thing. Never. There's something else in this movie that is also handled in a similar way that I don't want to ruin, but it's great. It's just great. I love the diversity in this cast, and it's not diversity for diversity's sake. These actors are great for these parts. Bokeem Woodbine, who plays Herman Schultz, he plays a great shocker in my opinion. I thought he was absolutely awesome. Small role, but powerful, and I just think the cast overall was so strong, so strong, and the writing really supported the particular skill sets of each actor. And the Vulture, Michael Keaton as the Vulture, absolutely terrifying. He just knocked it out of the park as well, man. Michael Keaton was so good as the Vulture. I really was thinking about it as I was leaving, and I think he was the best Marvel villain so far that we've seen. It was just grounded in a very real place, and you understand why this guy is not only doing what he's doing, but you also understand why this guy is so upset with Spider-Man, and then you also understand like the way his character arc is handled at the end of things as well. It just was so well done. Again, without spoiling anything, Michael Keaton was great, and in my opinion, he's probably the best Marvel Cinematic Universe villain we've seen so far. Just the way they tied everything in with the Avengers and the MCU and the battle of the Battle of New York, and the way the Tinkerer is making all of these different gadgets from the Shocker and the Vulture suit from all the alien weaponry is really cool, and it kind of gives you an idea that, okay, so this is probably where a lot of the Spider-Man villains are going to come from, and you might be like, well, it's not really jiving with me that everything's coming from the Battle of New York, but you can't help but think if that happened in New York where you live, and it was just such a drastic shift, not only because aliens came out of the sky, there's also just a team of extraordinary people with extraordinary gifts and abilities that now exist. Things change, as the Vulture says in the trailer, and it's time they start changing as well, so you can understand how that might happen. Before we get into spoilers, I want to mention that the overall tone of this film was so personal, and it was epic and so small and grounded in the perfect combination of ways. Like, he is a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in this movie. You're not going to see a lot of, big over-the-top buildings and swinging through Manhattan, flying over skyscrapers, and that's not Spider-Man yet. It's Queens. He is Queens. He is in the streets. He is on the ground. There's more there's more like zip lining off the roofs of buildings and through telephone poles and things, rather than like swinging over skyscrapers and stuff, because this is the story of our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, our younger Spider-Man, who's coming to be the Spider-Man that we one day will know and love. And I just really thought that was great. I love that they kept that through the whole thing. And you really understand, like, he doesn't know what he's doing yet, but he's trying, and he has a good heart, and he wants to do the right thing, and he gives up a lot to do the right thing, multiple times in this movie alone. And the movie was just it was fast. It was funny as all hell. It was so sweet. There were moments that I easily could have cried, if I just let myself go a little further. It was like some beautiful moments in this movie that really, as a Spider-Man fan and just as a person, and just as a little boy who always loved this character, spoilers, he is my absolute favorite Marvel character of all time. My favorite character in fiction, period, of all time. Always has been. And so for this movie to be gifted to me, it felt like, that's what it felt like. It felt like it was a personal, like, hey, like, we know who you are. We know Spider-Man, and you deserve this. And you're watching it, and you're like, it can't get any better. Like, that's Spider-Man. And it's just wonderful, and it makes me really excited to see where this movie goes moving forward, or where this universe goes moving forward, and how he's going to play into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and how he's going to grow as a person and change as a hero. Super well done. 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved this movie. Is there some bias? You bet your ass there is, and I don't give a shit. There's nothing wrong with it. I loved this movie. It was so amazing. So please go and check it out. We will move into spoilers right now. So thank you for watching. If you're splitting, please like the video, subscribe, all that stuff. We're getting into spoilers right now. So I just thought, where do you begin? So the whole arc with Peter and where he comes from, just being like, I'm an Avenger, I can do this, blah blah blah. It makes so much sense for the way it ends, where he's like, he's invited to be an Avenger, and Tony's not pulling his legs, and he's ready to bring him on because Tony's pretty immature still. As much as he's grown and as much as his heart is in the right place, you know, Peter's had one big win. He's not ready still. He's not. And it's so great that Peter knows that at this point. He's matured enough to where he's like, I'm not ready for that. I need to stay what I'm doing. I need to keep the course and keep training and keep, you know, fighting these fights that I can handle and grow as a hero and as a person. And Tony's like, yeah, you totally passed the test. And then the reporters are actually in the room. So let's touch on that real quick, that end scene. Really cool to see Pepper back. I honestly thought they were completely done with her, not going to bring her back into this universe at all, which I would have been okay with. But I also think it's great that she's still around and there was redemption for Tony. And you can kind of fill in the blanks of like, he's made up with her and after Civil War and, you know, needing someone to talk to and things like that. So I really thought that was cool that she was back, and it made a lot of sense for his character. Happy Hogan was just so good, you guys. He was awesome. I loved how much, you know, he kind of like was aggravated by Peter a whole bunch and then really came to understand like he is a good kid. He's a hero. And then you kind of find out he's been the one pulling for him on the sidelines as well, which I thought was really cool. And how about that fucking suit at the end? Oh my God. That suit at the end, I was like, I literally had like a pinch myself moment. I was like, is that actually on the screen? Like, is this happening? It all felt too epic and surreal. And that's because they did such a good job at making this movie so grounded and smaller and a really like, you know, a beginning Spider-Man movie that when you get back to that point and when you get back in Iron Man's world in the new Avengers headquarters and there's reporters and there's an Avenger Spider-Man suit and, you know, and then you realize like, oh my God, like I totally forgot all of this exists in this world. And this is like a much bigger thing. We've been in space with the Guardians. We've done so much with Iron Man and the Avengers, and he's fought Ultron and they fought each other and there's Black Panther and there's all stuff going on. And they just totally like throw that back at you all of a sudden at the end, just by that small, you know, that small token where he unveils a suit and you see the big Avengers A behind him and you're like, oh my God, like I forgot. Like that's where this is going eventually, because this, you know, he does turn him down, but that's where this is going because they did such a good job at just really making this a small yet epic Hollywood like Spider-Man story. What I thought was so great is that it did feel like, you know, they didn't have to deal with the origins at all. There was very, very minor blips of the origins, but overall, you know, this was just like one of Spider-Man's first issues. It was one of his first coming of age and filling out the suit kind of stories, and it just felt so natural. The origins was not missed at all, and you kind of get that back to basics thing because we get to have fun with him in his official Spider-Man suit and seeing him flying around fighting bad guys and all this stuff. And then at the end, you kind of get the rebirth when he goes back to basics and the suit is taken away from him and he fights Vulture in his basic suit and he learns, you know, relearns like responsibility and what he needs to do and what he has to do and why. When he leaves the dance and he goes, and then all the way down to saving Vulture at the very end, he's true to Peter Parker to the very end when he just is trying to save Vulture. He's got nothing left. He's got no webs left. He's got nothing. This guy's just been beating the shit out of him this whole like 20 minutes or whatever, and he's still like, I'm just trying to save you. And you're like, damn, like that is Peter. It's just perfect. And they just do such a good job at like bringing that back to basics, and you get the origin story without ever having to deal with the origin story. So one scene I definitely want to talk about is that scene when he does decide he's like, I gotta go, and he leaves Homecoming, and he knows, like, I'm fucking everything up, but this is who I am, and this is who I need to be, and I'm Spider-Man. And he goes, and he gets his old suit, and he goes and confronts the Vulture. And during that fight, when the building drops on him, and he's just screaming out for help in this gut-wrenching, curling way that, you would feel if, I don't know how old any of you are, but I don't have a child myself, but I have a heart, And when I see this kid, like, he's screaming, like, help me, please, I'm stuck, I can't, please, somebody help me. He's crying and screaming. And you're like, oh my God, like, somebody help him. And then you realize, the same time that he realizes, like, I'm who you call for help. Like, it's me. I have to do this. And there's just this completely perfect and magic cinematic, like, moment where you and what's happening in this movie are just, like, perfectly in sync. And you're feeling so bad for him because he's just a kid at the end of the day. He is just a kid, but he's also Spider-Man, and he sees that in the puddle. And he starts getting up, and he's just not strong enough, and he's pushing, and you're in the audience, and you're thinking to yourself, come on, Spider-Man. Like, come on, Spider-Man. You're my guy. Come on. And then he starts saying, like, come on, Spider-Man. Come on, Spider-Man. And lifting this building off his back, and, like, oh my gosh. That was, hands down, my favorite moment from any Marvel movie that will ever exist from before and forever. That was just meant so much to me, and it's something I don't know, like, it's something I definitely needed in my life right now personally, not to go down that road, but it's like something I needed as a Spider-Man fan. It's something something the audience needs just to believe, to remember, like, these guys are just, like, people trying to do the right thing, and that was just a amazing moment for his character, and it got me really emotional. I was like, oh my gosh, like, my heart just couldn't take it. And then when he does it and he gets himself up, it was, like, just unbelievable. The whole scene with the fairy, seeing him move around like that and just trying so hard to web everything together, that was just the most awesome spectacle piece in this whole movie. And it was such a good payoff. I mean, he ultimately fails, and Iron Man comes and bails him out, but just to see him trying and moving so fast and tying all these webs together, and oh, that was so awesome to watch. Just the way he moves. They just nailed the way he moves and fights in this whole movie. He's so fast, and just when he does get to moving, he's so natural at it. He trips up a bunch. He's very clumsy still, but it's cool. It's those beginning, like, those learning bumps that he takes that make this movie so special, because you see him. He does get better. He does grow. He's learning, but slowly, and he's still young. He's not coming to the full ability of his powers yet. Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, that whole arc, when you find out that is Liz's dad, I was very curious, because they don't ever say Adrian's last name until he's in prison at the end. And then you don't ever hear Liz's last name in the whole movie at all. You assume it's Liz Allen, and then you find out that is her dad. My whole theater, along with myself, I was like, oh, fuck. And that's perfect. Like, it is the best Spider-Man stories. Whenever Spider-Man is winning, Peter is losing. When Peter is winning, Spider-Man is losing. There is never, and if there is, it's very brief, like, happy medium where everything's going great for Pete, everything's going great for Spider-Man. That doesn't happen. And it's a very bittersweet thing about the character, because it leads to such great stories, but you feel for him because nothing ever goes right. And if you're like me and you've been following this character since you were so young, and you just know who this guy is, to see that play out on the screen so well, where it's like, that's perfect. It's just the perfect, terrible thing to happen to him, to have Vulture be Liz's dad. In that conversation in the car, you really find out what Michael Keaton's made of, man. He delivers. He is such a great evil guy. I love that he did have somewhat of a redeeming moment in the prison in the end credit scene, where he's like, I don't know who he is, talking to Matt Gargan, which was a great Easter egg. Really hope we see that moving forward. What an interesting character to throw into this world. But yeah, I was like blown away. That whole scene with him when he really gets down and dirty. He's talking to a kid, and he's still like, I'll kill you. Like, I will. And he knows who he is, and he's just so sure of it. And that whole car ride scene was so, from the moment he shows up at their house, it's so tense and awful, but it's exactly what would happen to Peter. That's the way it goes. You know, he is just that guy. Things don't go right for him on both sides of the fence. It doesn't happen. And it was just such a great conflict overall. I'm trying to think. I just want to make sure I talked about everything I want to talk about before we end this. The supporting cast was great. I thought the Shocker was really cool. He was used just the right amount. I think it was cool to see another Spider-Man villain in there, like a C-list, B-list Spider-Man villain in there. And they used him just the right amount. I think Bokeem Woodbine did a good job at being... I wasn't sure if he was supposed to be Herman Schultz or the first guy was supposed to be Herman Schultz. But according to IMDb, Shocker 2 was Herman Schultz. So I thought they both did a good job, honestly. But I liked Bokeem's version. I like he was... You know, he was more like... He had a brain, but he was like a thug. You know, he was more what you would expect from Shocker. And I liked how quickly Spider-Man, even in his basic suit, was able to deal with him. Like, that's the way I feel like it would go down in the comics. The Shocker doesn't ever pay much of you know, he doesn't really pay too much mind to Shocker typically. Actually, according to IMDb, Logan Marshall Green, who was Shocker 1, is Jackson Bryce, who is another Shocker, which is really cool. That they were able to include both versions of the Shocker in this. I don't think they say his name in the movie, but according to IMDb, that is the case, which is so cool. I love that. A little known fact, the voice in the suit was Jennifer Connelly, as far as I know. I'm looking it up, actually, while I'm talking to you guys. I thought the whole thing with the suit and him having his own AI was so cool. I loved their interaction. I loved that she became like a friend to him. What a cool character, all on her own, you know what I mean? Just for his inner monologue, and the suit itself was awesome. I liked all the gadgets. I like it was not too much of that. You know, you still understand that like it's him, it's his skill, but the suit can do so much for him. And when they developed that relationship between him and Karen, he calls her, who, yes, according to IMDb, it is Jennifer Connelly. I read that a while back and I forgot all about it. I think it's so cool. I thought it was so awesome. I loved the relationship he develops with her and how she kind of eggs him on when he's talking to Liz and stuff like that. I don't think I missed anything else, but geez, what just a awesome ride. It was so fun and so heartfelt and just the absolute perfect Spider-Man movie that I couldn't have dreamt up in a million years myself. It meant so much to me. This meant so much to me. The cinematography I thought was on point. Every shot, you know, looked like a comic book panel from the early issues of Spider-Man where he's learning and starting. I think John Watts did an awesome job of directing this movie. You know, what else can you say? It was just perfect. I could go on and on. I could talk about the whole movie all night long. I'm going to see it again tomorrow, so it's all I'm thinking about right now. It was so good. I hope if you're watching this part of the review that you have seen it, and I really, really hope that you enjoyed it even half as much as I did, because it just meant the world to me. This was a great Spider-Man movie. I was surprised that he rejected the Avengers invite at the end. You know, we all know eventually this will happen. You know, he will be back with the Avengers because, you know, the internet, we're privy to this kind of information already, but it was a cool moment for him to decide that. And then that suit was so cool. I'm gonna be thinking about that all night. I loved it. I just loved it. It was a really, really special movie and one that I will just hold to the highest regard for ever. I hope you guys love the movie too, and I hope you like this review. Please click the like button if you liked it, and please subscribe to the channel. Would really appreciate that as well. There's a whole bunch of other ways to support me. You can find that in the description below. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the movie. I hope you've seen it, like I said, but if you haven't, you just don't care about spoilers, go see it. It is just the best, and it's a real treat. Thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you next time.